Hey guys, how's it going? So today I want to talk about how I took my client's Meta ad account from around 5 ROAS up to 15 plus. And this is going to be with heaps of creative testing. No surprise there, right? But if you're a medium to small size business, you probably don't have massive amounts of money to put towards a medium production company. And maybe you are limited in terms of the amount of UGC content that you receive from customers as well. So what we're going to do today is I'm actually going to walk through exactly how you can maximize the content that you do have, leverage what already works, but use AI to generate new hooks, which is going to appeal to different audiences. Because we know that obviously the educational step when it comes to the customer purchase journey isn't the first step, right? The first step is obviously gathering interest. We need to make sure that the target market feels like this video is for them. And the only way to do that is with a really hyper-tailored hook that we can use AI to generate. So I want to first off show you a few examples of what I actually generated. These are real ads that were running live and were performing quite well on the account. So this one here.
So everyone wants to know how the device from the future works. You open up a new sterile, what looks like a syringe, but that's just the application.
So I'm just going to stop it there so we don't have to go through the entire video. This is obviously for a medical product, right? And this is a product walkthrough that goes through talking about how the product works, but it's quite long, right? It's almost 40 seconds in length. And this is what the client was running before we started using AI generated hooks. So what that means is people, it's not that well lit, the contrast isn't amazing, the voice is kind of monotone, and it's going to take a lot for someone to actually sit through this video, right? That is completely different from that initial, what we saw, that initial hook at the start, which is very visual. That red, looks emergency, it looks like something's going on. There's absolutely no surprise here that this ad performed quite well because it obviously stopped that scroll. So that's obviously non-human. We used VEO3, which is one of the AI models to generate this, but we can also generate something that is a little bit more human in nature. So let's look at this example.
Gym bag check, shaker, keys, and this needle-free injector in my hand. No sharps to deal with, and it feels tidy.
Needleless injection.
And then we go back into the UGC. So you can see there, it was only the first 3 to 6 seconds that we're actually using this AI generated clip. And what that means is we're not really giving people enough time to realize that it's AI generated. They're just interested. They can see the product in the actual clip. They can see the target market. They can see the person that we're hoping that they identify with. And we've got that initial push. We've got that initial, sales pitch that we can deliver very, very easily without that massive production studio. And I'll just show it again.
Gym bag check, shaker,
even
keys,
something like
and
that
this needle-free injector
transition,
in my hand.
and you could see those 2 shots there. That was actually baked into the one video. So that didn't even require any editing to get that effect. That transition was generated by the model based on just what we prompted it. So I want to show you one more example just to really give you an understanding of the real breadth of what we can generate. So this is really, again, pushing that TRT crowd, that medical crowd. So obviously something that is going to be a little bit emotional, create emotive reaction is obviously going to perform well, as we know as marketers. So again, something like this is going to be hard to get a creator to create that, but with AI, it's very, very easy. So next I want to talk about how we actually created these videos. Now, I briefly mentioned before that I was using VEO2, and VEO3 by Google is the other video model that I'm actually using to generate these clips. So they're created by OpenAI and Google respectively, and we could obviously go onto each platform, right? So you can subscribe to Gemini Pro Ultra, use their VEO3 model through that, and just pay a monthly subscription. The exact same thing for ChatGPT. You can pay for their Pro plan, and you can use their VEO2 model. The biggest problem with that is the fact that we have to actually write each prompt, each script, exactly, verbatim each time, right? And this takes a lot of work. It's very easy to write a simple script in terms of the general vibe of what you want the video to be, but it's going to be hard to write something that's going to be consistent. And when I say consistent, I mean consistent scene, consistent character, consistent themes, consistency throughout, right? And the reason for this is because we want to do multiple generations. Chances are when you generate one of these AI videos, it's not going to be perfect the first time around. So we need a way that we can really quickly iterate and create more and more variations of a very similar video and have it turn out pretty similar with the same character and the same transcript and the same scenes. So in order to do that, we can actually use a workflow to generate that. So before I jump into that, I do just want to briefly mention Kai AI. To give you an understanding of what this is, it basically combines all the capabilities of all these different models. So again, that VEO3 model as well as the Sora 2 model. Yes, we could go to those individual providers in order to generate those videos, or we could connect to Kai AI and actually through one platform have the ability to use those AI generated models, but also any others as well. So it really opens up possibilities, especially as new models come out as well. Makes it really, really easy to switch and actually change to whatever's working the best at that given time. But again, you can again go into this model, onto this website rather, and just try it. And you can actually just use, the prompting sort of situation here to create a video. But again, this is going to take a lot of manual work to actually get done. So what I'm actually using is something called N8N. And I can provide these workflows to you so you can get started really quickly. If you don't know what N8N is, it's very similar to Make.com or Zapier, meaning that it is an automation platform, meaning that you're stringing together other applications in an automated way in order to achieve autonomy, essentially. So what N8N is just a more complicated version of that, meaning that you can string together in kind of this layout here. And it might look a little bit daunting at first, but I promise it really isn't that complicated. The way it moves is simply like water, like a flow. So the first thing you would do once you have an N8N account, which you can sign up, just search for N8N. This is a locally hosted version, which you can also do, but that's a story for another day. So once you do have an account, you can simply just import from file, and this is going to bring that exact same workflow to your computer so that you can use very, very quickly. The only thing that you need to fill out is the relevant accounts that you will be using. And when I say those accounts, I mean things like OpenAI. You need to connect your particular OpenAI account. So it's very easy to do that. You just need to find the API key, and the docs will actually show you how to do that. You just need to go into platform.openAI and get that AI key. So once you have that key and put that in, you should be fine on that front. The only other thing is the Kai, so actually creating those videos. So you can see this node here. This actually connects to the Kai AI API, which generates the videos. And again, you need to have that authentication key. So you need to set up a key, an API key, in order for that to work. And again, I'll let you peruse the docs in order to set that up. So just to briefly run through how this workflow works, we start with a form submission. Now this is specifically for Sora. VEO3 is pretty similar, but to give you a quick distinction, Sora is going to be better for anything non-human, anything non-facing piece to camera, and VEO3 is going to be a little bit better for those, as I showed before, those in-product shots showing the product in the actual video. So the way this starts is with a form submission, and you can see that here that I can select Sora, I can give it a prompt, girl on a bike. And you can obviously provide as much information as you want here. I would actually go ahead and use Gemini or Claude or one AI model to actually generate what this prompt is. And the more detail you have in there, obviously the better, because what we're gonna see in a sec is that the AI processes it anyways. Okay, so you can't really go wrong with this prompt, because the more context you give it, probably the better it's gonna be. So think about not only the transcript, the character, the scenes, but also things like shots, the camera movements, for example, the ambient background sounds. These are all information, little tidbits that you can give the model to basically get something that's closer to what you're imagining. So once you do submit that, it will go through and it will actually ask ChatGPT to generate a proper prompt. And this is because there is some limitations, like a max length when it comes to Sora generations, and a particular, format that it's looking for as well. So like I spoke about with that example, we want a shot-by-shot breakdown, we want the cinematography, we want the actions, we want the location, and so forth. So there's heaps of information here that the model will actually use to generate a relevant prompt, and it will go out and actually spit that out and then create each video. So that's exactly what it's doing here. It's going through, it's creating each video on the Kai API, and it's going through, and this loop here is basically waiting for that generation to complete, and then it's simply uploading it, and it can send it to you on Telegram, for example. So that's the way that I have set it up, meaning that it's very, very easy for you to use that form to get started and actually begin a generation, and then find that video lands in your Telegram chat, meaning you can go ahead and load it directly into CapCut and start editing, for example. So that makes it super, super easy. Now, the other workflow, which I also want to talk about, is the VEO3 one. This one is pretty similar in nature, but it does have a few extra features. Like I said, it's really tailored after that, piece to camera with the product shot in it, because I found it was slightly better at following instructions. And this takes a few more steps because we do need to put the product image in the shot before we actually generate the video. So very similar to the other workflow, we have the start here where we have a brief and we want to fill it out with as much information as we can. The other key differentiator here is that we have a public link to an image, which is going to be our product shot. And we can see that here, it's literally just a shot of Powerade. And once we have that set up, then we also want to put in things like the audience, the vibe, the benefit. This is essentially the product, the CTA style, the character. Okay, this is all very important information, and the dialogue is pretty much just going to be the equivalent of the full prompt. So you can put as much information as you want in here. Again, we're using AI to kind of clean this up anyway, so it doesn't really matter as long as you put in all the information, you take out anything which is not relevant. So the key differentiator here is that we're actually using an image generation kind of segment here first. And this is slightly separate. This is using FAL AI, which is very, very similar to Kai AI, but FAL is just another provider. Okay, so they're very, very similar, but the biggest difference is the fact that we have this set up to use something called a LoRa, which is simply just a custom look. So if you have a certain avatar that you're looking to create and recreate, you can create something called a LoRa, which is going to keep visual characteristics set about a character, meaning that you can generate images and videos in future, which is going to keep that consistent. So that's the first thing it does. It creates that image, which is going to be in the character that we're after. The next thing is we're actually generating another image based on that image, as well as a product shot. And that's because Gemini Flash, or Nano Banana as many people know it, is really good at combining images. So while this first model was good at creating a character which is consistent, it's quite poor at actually putting the product image in the shot. So what that means is we kind of need to go by a two-step process, right? We create the character and then we add the product shot. The final thing, once we have that product shot, is we're generating the video, and we're generating it off that first frame, which is that final shot. So that is a key differentiator between the way that I have Sora set up versus VEO3. VEO3, I am starting from a reference frame, that initial image, versus Sora, which I'm going directly from that text prompt. And you might think, well, with Sora, maybe we can't create as consistent characters. You would be surprised. A little tip for you is to actually put an image that you're after, in terms of a character that you're after, into ChatGPT and ask it to actually give you as much information about the face and body data as you can. This is, literally call out examples like nose bridge, length, eye distance, all these things, and just say everything you would need in order to recreate this character exactly using only the generated output. And what you'll find is that it will output heaps of information regarding to the exact characteristics of the person, to the point that it's slightly creepy, but then you can actually include that in the prompt and you'd be surprised how consistent the characters turn out using only text. So you don't necessarily need that reference image. The only thing you need it for is for that consistent product shot, because regardless of how well you describe a product, it's never going to look exactly like the product packaging or the product itself. So we want to make sure that we actually have that reference image to make sure that the final video looks like the actual product. So I hope that helps you get started when it comes to generating AI videos and helps you iterate. Like I said, feel free to download these workflows. I'll provide a link to let you do that. and let me know if you have any questions. Till next time. Thanks.